So well, let's first talk about the charter itself. The general things that everyone's agreeing to. Did anybody have any issues around those?
Is that on the resolution part of it?
Yeah, the resolution, the charter, they call it.
Well, I just talked to you about just that one point.
That one,
and then
yeah.
you explain how.
Yeah.
Nope, I read the thing you sent around an hour ago, but I didn't read the whole charter.
You can skip the whereases pretty much.
Just go right to the therefore be it resolved.
You can
I can't even.
pretty much guess what the whereases are going to be. Whereas Trump is a jerk.
Well, yeah, see, there's too many things here that we don't know till we've done our, the cap, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the very first thing, I don't even know. I mean, maybe that's not coming out of our cap, but what is the nation's nationally determined contributions?
I actually wrote back on that one. I asked for clarification on A and D. D didn't make a lot of sense to me either. And I rewrote D and said, what about this, if this is what you're trying to say?
Well, wouldn't the cap be what's in, we saw that at Chamber of Public Policy Monday with a line by line each country and what they're going to either reduce or increase, because some are reducing and some are increasing, and like we're reducing, but some of those other countries are increasing.
Yeah,
and so there's an overall accumulative
reduction. So the industrialized nations are expected to reduce.
But it's an easy figure to get, I would think.
Right, and what I wrote back to say was, okay, are you saying that each of us is committing to doing the percentage that our city represents of the percentage that the U.S. originally committed to? So I don't have clarification on that.
What's a percent reduction in our emissions that's equal to whatever that national percent reduction was, right? So it's our
that would
emissions.
be like 2%.
That's one way to read it, for sure. And that's probably the most likely.
Isn't the nation's reduction overall 2%?
Oh, I think it's cumulative over time, but I think.
But chances are we'll agree to that after we've gone through the process of the cap, but I don't think we're where we can commit to that now.
Sorry, you're talking about A, and
Yeah.
I think that it reads how? Because I'm reading it to mean achieving a percent reduction equal or greater than the national.
So whatever our national reduction was supposed to be, then we would do the same percent reduction as normal.
Based on our population.
Based on our emissions. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we don't even know we haven't even gotten to calculating our emissions yet, so we don't know what that would be committing us to.
So part of the discussion that Peter and I have been having, and the mayor was in attendance, which was great, we met with the new consultant for the CAP. And part of why we're looking at doing the goal setting in February of this year is because we expect we'll start to have enough information for us to at least dialogue around some of this information as you guys are looking at the goal setting. And I had made a commitment during the last goal setting that within a year we would come back with more information for you to be able to make that kind of assessment.
I mean, a lot of these are advocating, they're not committing to a number or a fixed thing, and so they're not really problematic, but
they don't.
I think some of them are quantifying things, and
but I don't see that they lock us into something that would create any angst for us.
Right. It's not like they come take away the keys to the city if we don't meet our commitment or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like this is the goal goal that we're setting out to
And it doesn't
achieve.
even, on that first one, it doesn't even set a time, right?
Right.
So it just simply a goal.
Well, we don't, right. It says whatever the time was in the Paris Agreement, right? I mean, that's the implication.
I don't.
Which, as I
necessarily
understood
read it that way.
when people were sort of analyzing the Paris Agreement, they said it's pretty weak. And
Well, it's
we
more
should be
for-
able to do better than that.
More for showing international strength than it is for
Well,
other,
we need to
other
actually
accomplishments.
be
I mean, I know it
accomplishing
is, but,
things.
you know,
But basically what people came to was it's as good as we were able to pull together with
Yeah,
this
in a
group.
short
So it's
period of time,
it's a
right.
start. It's moving in the right direction. But we're going to have to ramp it up in future
yeah.
derivations.
And so then there's this part 2, specific commitments of individual
Right. And
mayors, and you only spoke to a couple of them.
Right. You're only required if you read the other page, the other.
The new email?
No,
Yeah.
there were
separate
two.
document.
Oh, the first page.
Two documents in the first
Right.
one.
Not the resolution.
It talks
the other.
about, one or two, however many you can do, but at least one or two. And so I I basically outlined SAFE. I made the commitment,
Although you
sort of
said
described.
7 years, and I heard it's more likely to be 9 or 10.
She's hedging on 9. I'm going to keep writing because I was shooting for 5, so I'm going, okay, fine, 7.
Well,
No,
but if,
January.
again,
I'll know in
so it's preliminary to be committing to that here.
But again, they're not going to come take away our keys if we
Well,
don't
I'm
get it
not
right.
signing on to something that we're saying is.
You're not signing it.
Well, right, okay. I'm not voting in support of something to make a commitment that we haven't flushed out what the commitment is. You can sign what you want to sign as the mayor.
Well, I think your part of your role is to provide some leadership for the city, and I don't necessarily think you even. I mean, obviously you don't need our vote to sign it, and I don't even think that we need to give you consensus for that. But I think that if you want to push us for 5 years, and you want to push us to reach the commitments in here, then I think that's entirely appropriate and part of your role. So I think.
And the tree number on that second paragraph was, I reached out to Peter this afternoon and said, if we were doing a decent planting plan, where would we hit by 2025? And he gave a range, and I came in at the lower. I picked 22,000. I thought a tree per person in the city.
And that was kind of his mid-range.
That was lower than mid, because he said 15.5 to 45 or something like that,
I think what I had,
or 16.5 to
16.5, 45
that was in
16.5.
terms of
dollars, and that's trees was 43,000. Sorry.
9,600 to 43,000. So yeah, it's smack in the middle. And it just seemed a nice symbolic number to plant a tree for each person that lives here by 25.
So that's basically a commitment of $30,000 a year. The middle of his.
Potentially,
Right.
depending on whether we're doing 2-inch caliper trees or we're doing rootstock.
Sure, that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And actually, I think rootstock might survive better here than they do in Illinois. I think the survival rate might be a little bit higher here than.
They probably,
Maybe.
they-
Because there's a lot of bare root planting that we do in the parks and stuff.
When Friends of Trees does theirs on streets, I've done Friends of Trees at parks and in natural areas and stuff. I've never done one on street trees. Does anybody know if they do bare root fruit or if they do bigger trees, potted trees.
Usually if they're doing the, they're burlap wrapped or whatever.
Yeah,
If they're doing,
Inch diameter or something.
yeah.
I feel like the
they're not
pictures I've
doing-
seen of the street trees are the bigger.
That's kind of what I was figuring. I mean, it's
No.
you plant one of those tiny little twigs. The
It's
odds
gonna
of
get run over by a
getting-
lawnmower.
I mean, they give them away. Like they've been doing
I think that's
free
what happened to mine I got
giveaways in
last
East
year at
Portland
birthday.
this last couple months. There might even be one coming up this week. They go to different neighborhoods and they're giving away bear stock usually there. But
So that might be
but
like
when they
yard
do those group plantings, I think they're usually that's for people to plant in their yards.
Yeah.
Kind of like what we do on Earth Day, giving away the potted trees.
Yeah. Well,
those were all
Rotary's going to,
bigger.
they want a Rotary project is to plant trees equal to the number of people in your Rotary Club.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about, I can't remember I don't know if we're working with, I don't know who we're working with. I think they had been working with Mitch because he was the PARB connector, right? Yes, I'm not sure if somebody's followed that up since then. But I think Joel was working on that to see how Rotary could provide those trees for residents of the city and therefore enhance Milwaukee at the same time that we're doing what we need to do for Rotary.
The tree board, I think, had some discussions with,
You can come up to that.
Come up to the mic. So that-
Yeah, thank you.
the tree boards had some discussions with Rotary about that. as
Okay,
well, in the
yeah.
last month or so.
Yeah.
Have they had any conversations with Friends of Trees yet?
I don't know if they've had specific conversations with anybody there, but they've talked about
Connecting with them?
connecting with them.
Well, and we shouldn't forget NCPRD as a mechanism for buying trees. They probably have some good sources for getting bare root stock at pretty good price. Because when they do their winter plantings in the parks, they have, they brought, when they were doing Spring Park, they brought like 1,200 bare root plants, to work parties. I mean, so they must have a good source for.
Yeah, and that's the other reason that I wasn't too nervous about that number between NCPRD and what they plant, and then Nikiwick and what they're planting, and Johnson Creek Watershed and what they're planting in the city, and then homeowners, and then any program that we create. And particularly if we can hook up with Friends of Trees and get them working in the city, I don't think that's going to be a hard number to hit in that period of time.
Yeah, I agree. Sounds good.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Peter. All right, now you're up.
Now I'm up. You only have 15 minutes, you have to.
Well done. 2 minutes after work. No. So originally we had scheduled to come forward with an update on the business registration conversion, which is what I drafted an update on for you all. And basically what it says is through the development process, after contracting with InterGov, which really was the only viable option that we had, considering the other options were 3 times as expensive and didn't integrate as well. I think we will still get a really good product. It just will be a year delayed because in development, when we were developing the customer interface, which is a lot of what the frustration currently is that the current customer interface is not the best. The one that was being developed, I had a lot of concerns on. And basically what we were communicated was that the development team is no longer investing in that portal because they're in development for another portal, customer interface portal. It has the same back end as the system that we've invested in, but it has a different front end. So we'd end up doing conversions twice. So what we bought into includes these upgrades in your package, so it doesn't, the second system we're not going to have to buy again. We will have some probably additional development hours to refine it, but I didn't want to have to do conversions twice for the customers 2 years in a row. Some advantages of the other system, of the second customer service platform, is that that is the platform they're running their permitting module on. We did not currently buy the permitting module, we bought the licensing module, but our business, or our building inspector is very interested in moving to this other system. Because currently they're on Acela, which is the state system, but that means it's state, all of the building inspectors that use that system, it's basically a group update, and so the city doesn't have as much flexibility to make updates to our fee structure and to that platform, and it's become very frustrating for our building inspectors. So through the next couple of months, as we evaluate the budget process, we're going to be evaluating whether or not it makes sense to do that conversion in the next year, and that would be another reason we'd have to be on the other customer interface. So basically, to avoid having to do 2 conversions, we've made the decision that we will wait until the first quarter of 2018 when the next system is up. Our current provider has extended our use through that first quarter to get us through the business registration renewals that are due in December, January of this year. So the cost impact's very little. I think it's the better choice as far as customer experience interruption, but it is a delay in enhancing that functionality that we were hoping to have this year.
And the plan is to also put, did I understand correctly, police, what they call alarm system permits are going to also go online?
Yeah, and right now they are using an access database that they have to regenerate every year. So the new system, which means that they have 1 more year of a very manual system, but then they will have the added functionality. They are actually also looking at, rather than doing the annual renewals, at a renewal system in which people renew in the month that they get their permit. So they will actually help us test the system after it goes live early next year, before we get to the business registration, bigger push, renewal push, because we're hoping to get this system online in the end of the first, beginning of the second quarter of the calendar year, which would give us multiple months of you refining the system before we'd have the big renewals. So there's some advantages there. So we will have outreach, obviously, through the website and whatnot, but we'll do a much bigger outreach program next fall when we do those renewals to get the system out. We're looking at things like having the applications in multiple languages. We're not sure if that functionality will be electronic or whether those will be manual, but it is something that we will have, whether we do it manually or through the system. What are some of the other functions that we're looking at? So one of the questions I did have for your consideration is something that we've kind of talked in passing, but I haven't gotten any real feel from you guys, is whether or not you guys are interested in updating the business registration fee structure to differentiate rentals. Currently, the fee structure is based on site and employee count, is where there's like a base plus number of employees, but we have a really large rental base that has to get a registration, and so like the current fee structure, you could have like 100 single-family homes under one business registration and pay just the one flat fee. Whereas if you end up with 3 triplexes or more, you have to have different applications for each site. So you could go to having one application, but then having a differentiator based on the number of units rather than the number of employees for rentals. And we would also then have a different database, and we'd be able to tailor the questions so that they're more applicable to rental companies versus companies with employees that we may be trying to see if they need other services. So we're enhancing the demographic information that we plan to collect through the new system. But we'd like to balance that or try to target that on the type of business. So if we have services that are more targeted to smaller businesses, and not rentals, so we could tailor those different applications as well. Was that too winded? As far as
I was gonna say-
question at hand?
There's a couple of questions in there, right? And so to me, I would think we want the data on how many rental units there are out there, which is a different question than if we want to start charging people more because they have multiple, right? So as I understood it, the city used to not require it if you had 3 or fewer, was that it, or 4?
Actually, you got an exemption for the first unit previously.
Okay.
So you had to have 2 single-family homes before you had to get an application, or you had to have a duplex. A duplex, I think, still required one. So it was just the first unit of rental that was exempt. That was actually taken, the code was updated right before or after I got here last July. And so we did actually, these current renewals, we did a big outreach that said that first unit you do need a business registration for. So now we're capturing those rentals, and that was a big deal because of the short-term rental market and the B&Bs. We were missing the registrations if someone was just renting a room out of their house or an ADU or something. So that was more the motivation for that. So. And as far as the charging, and I don't know, we can come up with variations, but it doesn't seem equitable as far as the different types of homes in the current structure. Like I said, the 100 single families, but if you have 3 duplexes, you have multiple applications. And the base fee is much higher than a per unit fee. So the more locations you have, the higher your fee goes up right now. Locations, not units.
Which doesn't make any sense at all.
It's hard for me because it's not consistent. Like I said, you can have all these single families, but if you have 2 triplexes or 3 duplexes, that's when your fee goes up. So
yes, that needs fixing.
Yeah.
So we can come up with some language to that. The reason that now makes sense or first quarter next year is because then we can tailor those applications as we set up the system versus having to go in and add it later and add the development of the additional license later. So I can work on that. And again, as we go forward into this process, I do anticipate having an update with the user interface so you guys can see that and seeing some of those demographic information that we're toying with the idea right now for like defining what a large business versus a smaller business would be, because again, the demographic information doesn't always apply at the larger size, and the larger size business doesn't need the services that a smaller or mid-sized business would. And so we're looking at how to do the applications to kind of get us better information to get them better information.
Okay.
So I'm not expecting you to have a number, an official number or anything, but how many, if you, setting aside, apartment what we all would think of as apartment complexes, how many owners do you think we have who have more than 5 units? Is it just a handful, or is there
5 units?
Yeah.
I think there's somewhere in there's a bigger gap. 5 to multi-use is probably not more similar than 1 to 3. I bet there's probably more people with like 1 or 2 and 3.
Sure.
And right now it's hard to have that data because they have to have different licenses for the locations. You don't always connect that they're the same person. Whereas, so we can't, it's much harder to give you that information now than if I had one license that told me how many units, because right now they're doing a different application for each one.
So does Dark Horse pay a different license for each of its buildings?
I would have to look that up. But I do know that we were charging Redbox a registration for every location they had, so that's why you don't see very many of them in town apparently. This was history I was given. So looking at that from even a for-profit business versus a rental business might be something we want to look at, because you are kind of penalizing businesses for having multiple locations.
Yeah.
So we can bring those back to you with suggestions.
Well, since I got on council, I've wanted to really look hard at the way we do our business license charges. And I don't know if that's something we want to dig into this year, but
Well, I was going to say, it was before your time, but Bonnie did a presentation on some options of trying to do it by income or by gross sales or, some.
there
There are different revenue models. Again, for those to be effective, you need some sort of audit or verification function. And as far as revenue for businesses, normally it's self-reported, and so you get varied results without some sort of audit function.
But number of employees is also self-reported.
It is self-reported. And again, even that you run into clarification on that would be good, because we apply it as we assume every business has at least one employee. There are a few cases in which holding companies will not, but a majority still do, but you get a lot of pushback from small business owners or whatnot on that employee count concept. So maybe just defining it better. But it is self-reported as well, and it's an FTE count. So if they have 2 half-time employees or 4 quarter-time employees, that's still 2 FTE for this count. Yeah. So even communicating that through the applications is complicated sometimes.
Well, for the bigger fish, which I'm sure that's who you're more concerned about in terms of income, in terms of, it seems to me there are some public, Dun & Bradstreet and some of these services that do tell you how many employees people have, right? So there is some way to spot check and see.
Somewhat, but coming from a profession where we based most of our income on how many employees businesses had, I can tell you that, first of all, they fluctuate tremendously, and secondarily, seldom do they tell you an exact amount, and they'll just give you a rough idea. And we found in chambers of commerce it wasn't a great way to assess our members, and it could be that we find that with the city also, that may not be the best way to assess, because what happens is that somebody who employs more people and maybe provides better service because of that ends up getting higher, having to pay higher premiums for whatever, whether it's business license or a chamber of commerce membership or whatever. So I always think about that when we have these kinds of discussions. It brings back those thoughts of how we dealt with that in chambers of commerce for years. And now they're moving to new models in chambers of commerce and not charging by numbers of employees.
How are they doing it now?
Well, it wouldn't be something that you could apply to a city, but what they're doing now is applying it to benefits. If you want just a basic membership, you get this. If you want something else, you pay more. So tiered membership is what they're calling it.
But isn't it still tiered within sizes of business?
No.
It's so the little mom and pop on Main Street and the big industrial.
They could pay $2,000 a year if they chose that they wanted those benefits.
Yeah.
But there's a minimum, so at a minimum, so like me, I'm an individual member, right? So at a minimum, I just pay X number of dollars, but I don't, because I have a lifetime membership. But an individual would, or a one-person business, if they wanted just those benefits. But if they wanted additional benefits, marketing or free passes to something or to be at a showcase or whatever, then they pay more. They go up the scale. Yeah.
And the number of businesses that are going to hit those data collection sites is probably limited for us, our exposure.
A couple dozen at most.
And it also takes a process and workload to go to the extra step of having our staff go and verify those things. So
it'd be interesting to just spot check a few of them and see.
Yeah.
But we're charging so little, I can't even imagine that the big ones that would
they would have it in
take the trouble to lie.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, because again, if they're big enough, it's very small to them, and it's for the small businesses. It's really we do the large base charge and then the employee charge.
Right. That's what we had talked about trying to rectify that by reducing the base and increasing.
So is this one of the things, League of Cities always does their surveys of how different cities do different things.
Oh,
Have they ever done a
Yeah, I wonder.
Business.
I'd like to, if you could check their website and see, because they just put out in a recent issue their whole list of topics.
Yeah.
And they had quite a list of topics, so
Yeah,
it would be interesting to see if they've done
It
one.
would.
Yeah.
good idea.
I think it's worth exploring. Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you,
Good job.
Haley.
All right. I think we're TriMet Orange Line Year 2 report. Tom Margoff. How are you?
I'm swell. How are you?
Good.
It's all blank. Hi, I'm Tom Margraff. I'm the Director of Public Affairs at TriMet, and it's very nice to be here. We were asked to come speak about year 2 of the Orange Line, and so we put together a little presentation for you. Let me show you. So, let's see. Let me do this.
Did you stage that picture with the train and 3 buses all on the bridge?
Good.
It's fake.
You know what? I'm having trouble with this.
It's a great picture.
It is a great picture.
It is a great picture. What's going on here? Thank you. So, as you know, the Orange Line goes from downtown Portland State, down to the South Waterfront, and it crosses into Southeast Portland, Milwaukee, and Northern Clackamas County. This is our 6th project that brings the total system up to 60-mile light rail. And the Tillicum Crossing is the only bridge of its kind, which is a multimodal bridge in the United States, in North America. We have a congressman who always says it's the largest bridge of its kind, and I hate to correct him, it's the only bridge of its kind.
So it is also the largest.
It is also the largest. 50% of it was federally funded.
And it's probably the most beautiful.
I think it is the most beautiful, and it is appearing on lists around the world as among the top 20 bridges in the world. So
Wow.
that's kind of neat. Yeah, that's cool.
Very cool.
It was 50% federally funded, and it's making a significant difference in the number of people who are using transit. Here are the ridership numbers, which are of real interest to folks. What is also of interest is that these have gone up as of just today. So we have about 13,000 people riding on the weekdays and now 11,000 on the weekends per day. And that's good. The ridership overall, we're trying that right now, is flat. With the bus system, it is slightly declining. With the light rail system, it's slightly increasing. Ask me why, and go ahead and try, but I don't know the answer. What's going on is actually a national phenomenon, and we're all trying to figure it out. There are some interesting theories. One of the theories is that downtown is not the destination it used to be. You know, when I was a kid, I think we had 14 movie theaters in downtown, and they were big ones. That's where you went to the movies. That's where you went to eat. Who goes to movie theaters anymore? Not as many. I do too, but they're not as predominant as they used to be.
Right, and there's not near as many. I tried to find one over the weekend for my grandson who wanted to go to an indie theater and take Max.
Yeah.
Living room.
Fox Tower and living room.
Fox
Yeah.
living room.
He found a couple, and that might be what they were. He found one, I think. But, yeah.
Yeah, and something interesting happened throughout the region. There are great places to eat in neighborhoods, which didn't used to happen when I was a kid growing up. So people, we think, are tending to walk or stay in their own neighborhoods to dine, which is phenomenal.
Do you think the difference between bus and light rail might be just the congestion issue, that it takes longer on the bus than people would necessarily like because they're stuck in the same congestion that everybody else is stuck in?
You know, I don't think so. I really don't. We don't know for sure. Honestly, we just don't know that for sure. But we do think that there is maybe a relationship between the bus and Uber. People who use buses tend to be interested in also using other alternative forms of transportation. And there is an increase in Uber and Lyft ridership. And we think maybe that is part of it. they'll take a bus part of the way. They plan on taking you to home, for example, from a late night meeting or a late night outing. So we think that might be part of it.
So you're saying 13,000 people a day on the orange line?
Yeah. Park and ride lots. These lots are filling up very quickly. In August of 2016, we entered a 3-year agreement with the Elks Lodge, which gave us an additional 90 spaces over the park place. We have a good relationship with the Elks, and the use has been a lot higher than we ever anticipated. But, as you probably know, I hope you do, we had to trim that spot two floors, and we've been trying valiantly with the FDA to let us build those other two stories and use the money that we had saved from the project. We thought we were going to lose the money. We were, thinking it was tight, but then we ended up under budget, $48 million. And the FDA said, no, we can't use it. In fact, they've come to us now and said, stop asking, because we are the dog that keeps scratching at the door. We've been pestering them so much. So no, that's an unfortunate thing. We would like to see it bigger. But I do remember one of the most amazing experiences of my life before it was built, while it was under construction, hearing from the former chair of Clackamas County, no one's going to ride it, no one's going to ride it, no one's going to ride it. And then it opened, and 2 months later, I met with that person, and he pounded the table and said, the park and ride lots are full at 8 o'clock in the morning. What are you going to do about it? And I said,
Earlier than that.
yeah, you can't have it both ways.
So, is there any other, is federal funding the only possibility for getting those built up?
It's not the only possibility. We could use our local money, but right now we don't have a lot of local money for that.
And if we came into a pot of money, or we decided that there was, or there was anyway, if there was money available, would the priority be at Park Avenue or at Tacoma?
I don't know which one would be the priority, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But I do know that we could still build on both spots.
Yeah.
What's the estimate, just in ballpark, to double the size of the park? Do you know?
I'm sorry, I don't know that. I don't know what those 2 stories would cost, but I can find that out for you and I'll send it back to you.
It would be an interesting number to have in our pockets as this conversation around the bond measure starts to mature and people start talking about projects. And
that's a great idea.
Because,
that's a great idea.
at some point you may lose the Elks may get redeveloped. You may lose the Elks.
Possibility of that.
Even if the Elks doesn't redevelop, there's going to be redevelopment all around there and higher demand.
Yeah.
So the overall line costs just under $1.5 billion. Like I mentioned, it came in $48 million under budget. The FTA did allow us to put some things back into the project. It allowed us to put back into the project some shelters, 14 shelters, and at the 10 MAX stations. They allowed us to put in some of the amenities that I think you see over there, the glass columns, which were done by local artists. And they allowed us to put in the electrification, the solar panels, and the flat screen monitors that allow you to see when the trains are coming.
Are you paying for the stairs at Tacoma, or is that Metro Trails doing that?
That's the next one. They're allowing us to do 2 other things, and those stairs that allow us to connect the Tacoma station to the Springwater corridor, which is really just a short staircase. They're allowing us to use that. It's a small project, but it's better. The other one is the Gideon Street Bridge. I don't know if you remember that, but there used to be a pedestrian bridge over the railroad in southeast Portland that had to go. It was a mess. It was a rusted mess, and it had to leave. And they're allowing us to put that back into the project, and so we're going to rebuild that. The reason the FTA is allowing us to do that is for safety concern. They were able to justify that for safety reasons, which is good. But that's why they're allowing us to put that money back into the project. Southeast Board was very happy. It made a big difference. I don't know if you know where that is. It's where the big Fred Meyer headquarters is. And then you got the massive railroad crossing over there. We were able to use the excess property, give it to you, to sell it to you folks. And that is a thriving little area. I just had lunch there the other day. It was really, for the first time.
Oh, there's Lita.
It was nice.
No.
Is she there?
Cooling off. Yeah, my daughter.
Are you serious?
Is that Lita? You recognize the dress, huh? I can't see from here.
Oh, that's true.
Oh,
Wow, that was not planned.
She's everywhere.
yeah.
I want to thank you folks because as other communities are looking at light rail, they've been coming to you on their own, and you've hosted them. I think you hosted Tiger 12.
We did a couple months ago.
Yeah. And your chief, I think, has met with their new chief, which is great for her because this is a whole new world for her, and so this is really helpful. Crime does happen, but not in the numbers that were predicted by a number of folks. There have been, like last year, 16 offenses between OMSI and the Park Avenue Station. But with almost 7 million rides between then and now, that's not a lot.
Yeah. Probably get that at any one 7-Eleven in a year.
And are those on train,
rage
off train,
incidents.
both? Both. Okay.
And that's my brief presentation. You have a beautiful community. That was an exceptional day.
It was.
Yeah,
That was
beautiful
fun.
day.
Yeah. Pretty awesome.
So, any questions?
I'm very happy to see the stairs going in December 2018. I live there, and it'll shave another 5 minutes off my walk. So,
Oh, that's great.
for someone who uses it pretty regularly.
Yeah, I can't picture where they're going. I'll have to go down there and see. Yeah.
You know where the small sort of there's temporary fencing up there right now because people are using it where to go in. So if you go walk the trail, you'll see there's sort of mud steps that go down there.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
It just saves you that switch.
It's close to McLaughlin then. It's not further. I was thinking it was further back.
Come
It's
closer
just
to my
after you
neighborhood
cross
from
the
Milwaukee,
second-
from
McLaughlin. Okay.
You know, the switchback takes you all the way, almost all the way to McLaughlin, and
Right.
you have to go back behind
Right.
Pendleton. It's essentially going to cut out that whole switchback. So
Great. Great.
And there's still a bus connector at the corner of Washington and 21st, Bernard's Garage area. That's still a bus stop, and that seems to get a lot of
Yes, I believe it is.
a lot of people down there. I mean, I used to see them, a lot. I used to larger groups,
Yeah.
but I haven't been down there really recently. So.
And I understand there's a development now going in there.
Yeah,
Going to happen there,
eventually.
and I don't know
yeah.
what that's going to do to that section
So
again.
that whole area will be under construction.
Well, there'll be two developments.
That's
Got a plaza,
Yeah.
you've got, it's gonna be a mess.
It's going to
Three.
be, that whole area is going to be a mess for about 2 years, and then it's going to be very busy.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I have a personal TriMet question now. I need to know where to get a hop pass for my granddaughter.
Where would you like to get one? They are everywhere. You can get one at Fred Meyer. You can get one at any.
And they cost money at Fred Meyer?
$3.
Okay.
And then it's good for the rest of your life.
Okay. And nothing's loaded on it at that point.
No,
She's
you load it up. You can load it up at the store. You can load it up online.
Oh, you can load it. So even mine, I could load up at the store?
Yes.
But I can do it online too. But
Yes.
Cool. Okay.
I was just
I'm
now
sad.
reading about HOP, and I didn't realize that you cannot go over a day pass
Right.
essentially in one
Which
day.
saves people a lot of money.
Because I do that all the time. I accidentally forget to buy a day pass in the morning, and then remember that I've got three trips tonight, so
it's so
I
cool.
end up paying more than I needed to, and
Right.
that's really great.
Well, and after
I'm at doing that.
Once you build up so many rides,
can't go over
get
a month.
pass or something. I don't know how many.
Right.
You can't go over $100. The
price of a monthly pass.
And so it saves everybody a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, if, somebody that takes transit frequently, I mean, I don't take it that frequently, but, and then with my grandkids coming and going, I thought, I should buy a hot pass and just have it now, of course, with the granddaughter living here, but I thought I should just have one that's loaded. I mean, I bought lots of passes over this last weekend, just buying day passes because the kids were in Portland, all day, Saturday and Sunday. So I'm like, I could have not had to feed the machine all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course they can't use mine because mine's an honor citizen one.
Right.
And theirs would be an adult one,
So all the buses have the,
Yes.
and it's just a tap.
Yep.
Yeah, it's so easy. I love it. Yeah.
I still have a bunch of them loaded up on my,
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
I gotta use that app before I
Oh, yeah.
do the hot pass thing.
Yeah. Yeah, the hot pass is great.
Yeah.
We got ours that day they were, was it at the Milwaukee station?
Yeah,
When
they
we
gave
had
them out.
the big,
Yeah, during the music,
They ran out.
huh?
the
Yeah.
music happy hour.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was fun.
it's great. Well, thank you for coming.
Well, this was fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Always good to see you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Take care. All right, so
This is perfect, actually.
we just take 15 minutes and then go into our public training?
Yep.
All right, so we'll be taking a 15-minute break, and then when we come back, we will not be on air.
We will not be on air.
Because we will be training, getting legal training for ourselves, the Design and Landmarks Committee, and the Planning Commission.
Very good.